I'm currently hiking here at Swallow Falls State Park in Western Maryland, and this is the biggest waterfall in the state that I'm about to come across and show y'all. But we're going to be searching for a few salamanders and doing a little bit of plant identification, so I'll take y'all along for the ride. The first herp at this location, Swallow Falls State Park, is this Anaxarus americanus, or the American toad. And there's only one other toad that this could get confused for, and that is the Fowler's toad. And in the Fowler's toad, the parotoid gland, which is the really big gland right behind the eye, and I'm gonna grab this guy so that I can illustrate this. But the parotoid gland is this one right here, that big oval one, and it lets out toxins if they get too stressed out or scared from a predator. But where the parotoid gland meets this little crest on the top of the head, which is called the cranial crest. In the American toad, as you can see here, it only touches the cranial crest right on the tip. But in Anaxarus fowleri, or the Fowler's toad, it will actually be seated up in the cranial crest, the parotoid gland. So you can see, if you look really close, how that is on this species. Here we have the intermediate wood fern, or the evergreen wood fern, just two common names for the same plant. And the way that you identify this fern from others and distinguish it from others is by looking at the structure very closely. So I'm going to label a few things to kind of explain what the parts of a fern are called, and then I'll get into specifically why this is the intermediate wood fern and how you know that's what you're looking at. So first off, we have the rachis, which is the section of the main stem that starts here at the lowest pair of leaves that are coming out, and it goes to the top. Then we have the stipe, which is the section of the stem that starts at the lowest pair of leaves that goes down. And these actually aren't called leaves, they are called pinnae, which is the plural of pinna for an individual. So right here to here, that's one pinna, and then all of these are pinnae. Then, not all ferns, but wood ferns like this have pinnules as well, which are the extra individual division that comes off. So this here, this one little piece in my fingers, is a pinnule, and this is a pinnae. So now to figure out why this is the intermediate or evergreen wood fern, it's pretty easy. So you look at the lowest set of pinnae that are on the rachis. So the lowest one, so that's right here, these two pinnae right here. And you'll notice that the row that faces the top of the plant is a lot shorter than the bottom. That's how you know it's a wood fern. Now, to know that it's the evergreen wood fern, you have to look at the pair of pinnules that are closest to the rachis and stipe right here. So we're looking at these pinnules right here. Now, on the intermediate wood fern like this, the first one on the bottom here, so we're looking at this one and this one, are going to be shorter than the next row, and then it tapers off from there. So you can see a shorter one, then a long one, and then it tapers down. That's how you know that it is the intermediate wood fern. So there's a lot of them around here, and they tend to like it in the moist woods, but that's exactly where we are. So just a quick fern ID for you, and we'll be looking for some more salamanders. So the first salamander that I've found at Swallow Falls is this eastern redback salamander, or Plethodon cinereus. These are the most common vertebrate animal in North America, and there are just so many of them. They're very common in the eastern United States and up into Canada. And this here is a very small, probably hatched not too long ago individual, and they have this really pretty red stripe on their back. And there's a few other salamanders that look like them, but we're in an area here in Western Maryland where this is the only one that looks like this. And you can see this individual here doesn't really want to be filmed too much, but these are pretty little salamanders, and there's probably going to be a lot of them today, so this is the only one that I'll show. This big species of fern that we have here is known as the cinnamon fern, and I can't show you the main reason why they're called the cinnamon fern right now because it's too late in the season. But the reason that they're called that is because they have these big stalks that their spores sit on separate from their leaves, and they look like sticks of cinnamon. But they're really easy to identify. They grow in a circular clump rosette just like the intermediate wood fern, and we can see another one of those right there to the right. But this one's a lot bigger than that. They have pretty round little pinnules on their pinnae on the side there, and the easiest way to identify them is you flip the leaf over, and at the base of the rachis there's these little woolly tufts that you can see, and that's going to be the only fern that really looks like that. So just a cool fern. They're very big, and they tend to grow near the water where it's pretty wet, which is exactly where we are right now. And I also just wanted to show this really orange mushroom here. It's pretty wild looking. So here we have a couple of bloomed rhododendrons. Haven't seen too many of these flowers this year, but this plant's pretty common in the mountains, and it is characterized by these big oval-shaped leaves that come to a point at the end, and this flower right here, so y'all can see. Right here is an eastern hay-scented fern. This is a very common fern to the eastern United States, and they are characterized by a pretty delicate structure, and they grow pretty erect and tall, and they also will creep. So they grow along the ground in a line, and they constantly pop up new leaves, and it also smells like hay when you walk by a field of them, so it's pretty easy to identify them just by scent. And I'm not talking about the ferns that are up there. I'm talking about the fern that's right here. So it's very common that you see them still unrolling their frond at the end there like that. Now this plant grows all over the place at this park, and you can see it in the eastern United States pretty commonly. It's called a colt's foot, and it's got this round shaped leaf that's pointed on the ends. It's pretty neat looking. It seems that this place is actually a little bit better for ferns right now than the salamanders, but we got two species right here. This here is the maidenhair fern, and it looks pretty different than a lot of other ferns because of the way that its rachis kind of loops around like that and only has pinna coming off of one side. And then under it here, this is a glade fern, and they don't have pinnules, they only have pinnae. So you can see it divides on one side, but there aren't individual pinnules that come off of it. So pretty cool couple species there. So at this spot I'm at right now, there's 3 more species of fern. So right here we have the ebony spleenwort, which I showed in my previous video, Plethodon Party and Appalachian Adventure. And I showed this one in that video too. This one's a Christmas fern. And if you want to know how to identify that, you can go refer to that video. And a third species that I also showed in that video, and this is the rock polypody. So this species here is called a black spleenwort, and this exclusively pretty much grows on rock faces, and it has a very signature clumping style of growing. And they're just covering this cliff wall here. You can see there's a lot of different individuals. And here by this little spring, we have the New York fern, and this is a really easy species to identify. They normally grow in big groups like this. You can see there's a lot. And if you look really closely at the individual little pop-ups, I guess you could say, of them, they usually are in groups of 3. As you can see right here, this one has a group of 3. And the way to identify this fern is they're super delicate and they taper at both ends. So you see it's a real short pinnae here, and then it goes all the way down to the bottom of the rachis there, and they taper down again at both ends. And the reason for that is because they say New Yorkers burn the candle at both ends, or burn the stick at both ends, and that's how this fern got its name. But it's also, along with the eastern hay-scented fern, one of the most common species of fern, and actually plant, on the eastern United States. Here we have a northern slimy salamander, or Plethodon glutinosus, and these can be characterized by having a white speckle pattern on their back and that dark navy blue, almost black color that you can see here. It's actually pretty hard to tell in the video, but it is a very dark blue. And these look almost indistinguishable from the white spotted slimy salamander, but they exist a little bit more south from here. And the only other physical difference is really that the northern slimy salamander, which is what we have here, has a little bit darker of a chin than the white spotted slimy salamander. So here we have a northern dusky salamander, or Desmognathus fuscus. And this species is commonly found near streams and water, and they're frequently found under really rotten logs where there's a lot of mucky mud beneath them. And a lot of the time the logs that they're found under are directly in the water. And they can be identified by having a brown body, and they're not too big. This one's not full grown, but you can see it next to my finger. They're pretty small, and they just feed on little microorganisms in the leaves and in the water that they live in. Well, I'd say that wasn't a bad trip through Swallow Falls State Park here in Western Maryland. Definitely, I think, better today with the ferns than the salamanders, but that's okay. I love seeing both of them. So I'll meet up with y'all once I get to my next location.